So, as we mentioned in our last segment, the NFL season starts tomorrow as of recording this. When this will be released, you'll already know either how smart or how stupid we are.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're going to go and we're going to predict every single week one game. The first one we'll talk about will have already happened, but the rest of them will still be up in the air, theoretically, except maybe the one in Brazil. But
Wait, when's the Brazil one happening? I didn't know that.
Friday.
Oh, is it? Oh, shoot. Okay, well, yes. That one is that Packers Eagles? Which
Eagles. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. So two.
So
The first two
two might have happened.
the first two will have already happened. And you could argue no, the rest you won't. But
It's
yes.
It's like any good movie. Like we'll catch you with some comic relief at the start. You
That's-
know, like you can
yeah.
laugh at us for saying the Chiefs are going to win or whatever, or
Yes,
you
absolutely.
know any of that ilk, and then you can actually get into our predictions. You'll learn whether to take us seriously or not. If we get the first two wrong, click out of the video.
There you go.
That's more. I'll just say that right away. But if we don't, you got to stay for the whole thing. That's the deal. So
There
these
you
first
go.
two may be the most important predictions we make all season.
Oh, it's even worse if one of us we go opposite ways on it.
Yep. Well, let's hope we don't.
Yeah,
So, Simon, Thursday night kickoff, Ravens at Chiefs. The Ravens are 3-point underdogs. Who are you taking?
Oh. Are they really? Okay. So you have the lines.
Yep.
Okay, I do
I
not
do have the line.
I do not have the lines on me, so it's a good thing you do. This is an interesting game. We were talking about it in our last little series. We are in the division series in the sense of they really are loading the first game of the season. Like this is a really good game right off the jump.
Yeah.
And I think I don't really a lot of this series is gut, and you got to understand that it's all gut. I am gonna pick Ravens. I'm gonna pick Ravens. All we've been hearing all season long, or all off season, is how Lamar Jackson slimmed down. Derrick Henry's joined their running game. That might be lethal. Obviously, they've lost a little bit on defense, but they weren't stopping Patrick Mahomes anyway. I think that if Lamar Jackson can get that offense going early, and I'm in this prediction, I'm assuming he will. I have the Baltimore Ravens winning. Are we giving score predictions? That's not something.
Yeah,
I'm
give
set
us
up.
shoot
set
a
up.
score. Shoot
Okay,
a score.
I'm not going to be putting that.
Shoot
on
it in the
screen.
dark.
Shoot it in the dark.
No.
Lovely. I'm gonna say let's say, let's have fun with it. 42-35.
Oh my God. Okay.
The score doesn't have to be right. Just the team that wins. That's all that matters for the scoreboard.
Yeah, they don't see the score.
Yeah, the magical. Just for context, after this week, we'll be showing me and Caleb's records for all the games we pick. All we have to do to get a win or a loss is pick what team wins and loses. We're not gonna score picks are just for fun.
Yeah. Hopefully we got to get this right, or else I'm going to be looking at like an 0-16 hanging under my name for the entire next week's video.
Wouldn't that be awesome? If one of us go 0-16, I will throw a parade.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
I'll jump in the ocean, but for real.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, anyways, if you're going down, I'm going down with you because I am also taking the Baltimore Ravens in this kickoff matchup. Now, obviously, like there are very much reasons to pick the Chiefs. There's a reason they're favored in this game. It's at Arrowhead. But we saw them lose this game last year against the Lions. And whenever I look at the Chiefs, they're going to be a very good team, and that's no question. I think they're going to be even better than they were last year, which is a bit of a scary thought for anybody else in their kind of vicinity. But they generally struggle a little bit more. Like they play worse than they actually are in the start of seasons generally. Like they'll have weird one-off losses to like the Colts in September, where it's just like, what the heck is that? You know, like the bad Colts teams, where like the Matt Ryan Colts team, I think they lost to, where it's like, what the hell is this? even losing this game wouldn't be a what the hell is this moment, but it would be kind of like a that's a bit weird. And the Chiefs always tend to have like one or two of those moments before they figure themselves out. There's a lot of new pieces that they have to integrate in there in terms of their offense. Like there's quite a few questions in terms of, will Xavier Worthy be able to fill the role that everybody expects he will after all the legal troubles and everything that Rashee Rice has gotten himself into this summer?
Right.
Is that going to have a cloud over anything? Is Travis Kelce going to look like he did in the playoffs last year, or is he going to look like he did in the regular season last year? Those are all kind of the questions. Will the offensive line hold up because they're starting a rookie rookie left tackle, I believe, in Suamatia. I believe that's who they're starting. But there's a lot of questions there. The Ravens have very similar questions in terms of new defensive coordinator after Mike Macdonald is gone, and also offensive line questions. This game will answer a lot about both teams. I can see both teams kind of struggling out the gate. But yeah, this is very much a gut prediction. I think with how Kansas City generally goes at the start of seasons, I think they'll kind of struggle to gel a little bit, but that's not going to be an indication of their season. I have Baltimore taking a very close one, 28-24.
Alrighty. 28-24. Okay. Okay. So, 7 minutes in, 1 of 15 done.
Okay, we got to speed this up.
Yeah, we may have to speed this up just a wee bit, but that is A-okay.
That's okay.
Next
That's
up,
the headliner game.
Next up, in Brazil, which I actually forgot. Green Bay Packers, Philly Eagles. Should be a good one. Two big NFC teams. Like I think I said it in the division thing, funnily enough, because it was relevant to what we were talking about with the NFC North. I think Green Bay Packers and Philly are my like 2-3 for best teams in the NFC, with the Lions sitting at the top of that. I think this is going to be a really good game, and it's a really tough one to pick because it really does just come down to who you think is going to start this season stronger. And despite what I said in my divisional series, or in our divisional series, and in my picks, I am going to go with the Eagles.
Wow.
It's a gut thing. I don't know why. I feel like Philly's going to start the season stronger. I know you're not high on them because of how they ended the season. I feel like they must if they are going to turn it around at all after what we saw towards the end of last year, it has to start early. And it absolutely has to start right here in a big game against a big conference rival. And I think this could absolutely come winter, we could see both these teams facing off in the playoffs, and I think a lot of that has to come into it. I'm going to take Philly. I think they start the season strong here. I feel like this is a much more, again, week one, there are no must-wins, but if there is a must-win between these two teams, I feel like the Eagles have a little bit more to lose, I guess.
Okay. I completely disagree with everything you just said.
Okay. Alrighty.
So you are aligning with Vegas here, apparently. Green Bay is a 2.5-point underdog. I don't see why. Again, I gave both of these teams as an example as to like the "what have you done for me lately" thing, right? You mentioned it already. I don't like the Eagles. I think the Eagles are very overrated in terms of people ignore the fact of how bad they were to end last season. They were one of the worst teams in the NFL, period, in the last 7 games of the season or whatever it was. And the Packers were probably one of the best teams in the NFL in that last 7-game stretch of the season. Obviously, an offseason changes things a lot. We're going to see some. Week one is always the hardest to predict because you don't know anything about these teams really going in. But in my mind, there's no way that momentum doesn't carry over, particularly when I think that one of the biggest issues for the Eagles was their coordinators. Both of them are gone, have been switched out. I think that will ultimately pay dividends for them. I have the Eagles making the playoffs. I think they're a good team. But at the same time, it's a lot to transition to. Kellen Moore's offense, I think, is a lot more complicated than Brian Johnson's offense was last year. It's going to take this Eagles team some time to gel. This might be one of my boldest predictions in terms of the score. Green Bay is going to go into Brazil and beat the doors off the Eagles, 30-17.
Holy. Wow, that's fun. Okay. Well, I guess What did you say was going to happen if we both get both, or if one of us gets both of these wrong? Because now it's going to happen because we're both on opposite sides for this Green Bay and Philly. Go. So there you go. Shit. we might be done fucked. We need a tie. We need a tie between Green Bay and Philly. Anyway, Jacksonville and Miami. Two teams, both from Florida. See, I know American geography. I'm not American. Anyway, both from Florida, two big teams right there. I think, I don't know. This one's a tough one because I'm pretty high on the Jags. The Dolphins are, obviously, we know they're good. They've still got Tua. They've still got Tyreek Hill. Great offense there. Able to put up a ridiculous score on pretty much anybody. And that does not exclude the Jaguars. I absolutely... Oh, I'm struggling here. I just got to make a pick because I really want to go with both these sides. I'm going to stick with my boys because I've gone with them a lot. I feel like in our series, I'm going to go with the Jags. Why not?
All right. We're really disagreeing with each other here.
It's only fun if we do.
Only fun if we do. Do you have a score prediction before I say why I think the Dolphins will win?
I don't know. I feel like the Jags the only way the Jags beat the Dolphins is if it's a more defensive game, and it's not necessarily a high-scoring one. So I'll say, in this magical scenario, the Dolphins start slower. I'm gonna say 24-21. Just do something like that.
Okay.
Every game can't be a classic.
Yeah, I completely agree with the fact that if this is an offensive game, the Jags cannot keep up with the Dolphins in a track meet. You have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, not going to happen. This is the Dolphins in September in Miami. The Dolphins in September in Miami scare me more than any other team in the league, basically. It's the Super Bowl September that happens, it's been happening the last few years for the Dolphins. The Dolphins are scary at the start of the season because the Jags, this is maybe less of a factor, but the Miami Heat is kind of unreal. They have the whole thing where Miami's sideline is shaded and the opposing team's is not, which is fantastic if you're a Dolphins fan. But no, because when they have everybody healthy, none of their players are slowed down. Tyreek's going to have all his speed. Jalen Waddle's going to have all his speed. Devon Achane, I think, should be back. That's going to be a scary offense to stop. I think the Jags put up a fight, but the Jags aren't necessarily a team that I'm overly high on anyways. They just don't have the offense to keep up. This is going to be one of those games in my head where it starts out pretty close. They're kind of going blow for blow, and Jacksonville just can't keep up. So I have a game that the final score isn't very close, but it'll be closer throughout the game. I have the Dolphins winning 45-23.
Whoa. You thought the last one was crazy. I actually think that one's a bit more nuts. I feel I feel that one's a little bit more nuts. This next one, assuming no blowout, logically we should be able to agree on, but we'll see. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers, Atlanta Falcons, playing in Atlanta. Obviously, Kirk Cousins behind the wheel of the Falcons for the very first time, taking on, I believe Russell Wilson was named the starter officially, right? Yes, correct?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought. But, so we are going to see these two all-time great quarterbacks, I'll say it, facing off in completely different sweaters for the first time. And should be interesting. I absolutely have no issue saying it's going to be the Falcons. And and this could be partly because of the fact that I have I have a lot of Falcons in fantasy, so maybe it's a little bit of optimism. But assuming all things go well, this should be an easy win for the Falcons. Absolutely. I don't think the expectations are too high for the Steelers this year with everything we've seen. I don't remember what both of us picked for the Steelers. I don't even remember what I picked, but I know it wasn't good. I know obviously the whole thing of Mike Tomlin gets a winning record every single season. That does not affect the first game of the NFL season. Atlanta Falcons winning. I'm going to say this will be my blowout. 28-10. No, 31 to 10. 31 to 10.
Okay. Um, so I've got, again, a different prediction here. This one is one of my upset picks.
Okay.
So I have the Pittsburgh Steelers coming out on top. And again, this is very much a similar kind of prediction to my Chiefs pick, where it's just like knowing the general personalities of these teams that have the same coach year after year, that generally play the same way. The Steelers, again, never really had a good offense in the last like 4 or 5 years. Everything after the Killer Bees era has just been kind of like, you know. But their defense has been fantastic throughout all of that. And I feel like every single time I turn on Red Zone, the Steelers are playing it close with the team that's much better than they are because their defense is just suffocating people. And against a Falcons team that is scary on paper and I think will be good generally, but it has a lot of things to gel. Again, like I think this is a big thing, especially in week one, especially with teams not playing a bunch of the preseason, where it's like I look at the teams that have a lot more consistency year to year, like the Packers, versus the teams that have a lot changing in terms of personnel, coordinators, all of that. Yes, both teams have a lot of turnover on offense, particularly, like you pointed out, quarterbacks. And yes, the Pittsburgh also has changes at coordinators, Arthur Smith revenge game. But at the end of the day, that Steelers defense is relatively the same, even with some additions like Patrick Queen. That defense is always going to be good. I can totally foresee a game where Atlanta just struggles to kind of get things going. They'll figure it out eventually, but it's a hard matchup against the Steelers at the start of the year. I'm picking the Steelers. It's my upset win. I don't think they're a better team than the Falcons. I just think in this particular situation, I could see the Falcons taking a while to get going and the Steelers defense jumping on that. I have the Steelers winning a low-scoring one, 17-13.
And in that game, of course, Russell Wilson throwing 4 touchdowns, correct? 4 touchdowns, 280 yards ish, around there. Around there. No
this
picks.
Isn't my Seahawks bias.
16,
This isn't
16,
my Seahawks bias.
Like a completion percentage of like, at least 85%, somewhere around there. Maybe like throw 75 rushing yards in there just for fun. It's gonna happen.
Something like that.
Taking in the copium. And anyway, Minnesota Vikings, New York Giants. Next up, we're kind of going through a few non-interesting games in the middle of the bracket.
This is so boring.
This is so boring. And you know what's funny? When it comes to boring bowls, is what I'm going to call this matchup between the Vikings and the Giants. I always feel like I see the Giants coming out on top of these types of games, where it's just so boring, and for one reason or another, I always see the Giants winning them. And that's the sole reason I'm picking them over them, because I think neither side is necessarily that much. Well, that's not true. I think the Giants are better than the Vikings. But that's not to say that I don't think the Vikings can beat them. I do think the Vikings can win in week one here. I am still going to give it to the Giants. Daniel Jones supremacy. Malik Neighbors, like 200 yards or something. I don't know.
You have a score for us?
Oh, like, God. 13-10.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page with that, even down to the score. I'm pretty similar. I also have the Giants coming out on top. And yeah, I don't know. It's just I think both these offenses are going to look pretty bad generally. I think these teams are about the same level skill-wise. So I think the line is Minnesota is a 1.5 point favorite. That feels about right to me. Yeah, I don't know. I think the talent level on both of these teams is pretty pathetic. I just like home field advantage almost tips it for me at this point.
Yeah.
Like I could just see like I also have a lot of faith in Neighbors just kind of like having a big breakout game where you're kind of like, oh my God, that Giants Vikings game was awful, but Neighbors looked really good. And like I could see my final score is 10-7 in my mind. It's a final drive in like the last 2 minutes of the game where New York finally goes down and scores a touchdown to win off Neighbors getting like 5 catches on the last drive or something.
Yeah.
That's kind of in my head. These teams are both bad. It's not going to be a good game. Giants win, but yeah, it's a coin flip. It could go either way, and I don't really care which way it goes.
God, the only scarier than the idea of sitting through that entire game is the amount of our faces that are about to be on the screen here by the end of this fucking thing. Carolina, New Orleans, another one that's a bit of a snoozer. My prediction for this completely revolves around the fact that I think that Bryce Young is going to have a much better second season than he had first. And I think to be able to honor that, because that is one of my big predictions going into this year, I have not completely given up on him. And I do not like the Saints this year. I don't like what they're bringing to the table. I think they're just the same team we've seen over and over, except worse, because they just progressively keep getting worse. I'm going to give it to the Panthers. I'm going to let them start 1-0. I that's not me saying that I think they're going to be anything incredible, but that is me saying that, let's see what happens. They can start 1-0. I don't think that the Saints are the type of team. I can imagine a 1-0 in front of the Panthers a lot more clear than I can see a 1-0 in front of the Saints.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Prediction.
Do you have a
score prediction?
Score prediction?
This is another snoozer. I don't know. I'll say fucking 20 to like, it'll be a weird one. 20-13. Let's do that.
Okay.
It's gonna be something like that. A lot of field goals.
we were on opposite sides of the first few, but man, we're on track here. The final score is only off by 3 points there. Yeah. I'm also going with the Panthers again. It's very similar. I won't speak for very long because you kind of just said everything that I would. I'm very pessimistic on the Saints this season just because, they do feel like they're running back a lot of these same old tired pieces. I don't think Derek Carr is going to do very much of anything. I think the Panthers still have a pretty abhorrent roster, but they're under much better coaching, in my opinion. I think Bryce Young is going to have a much better season. I think he's got better weapons around him. They've made investments in the offensive line. I still have them being, in my season predictions, I still had them being one of the worst teams in the league. But if there's any games that are going to win this season, it's going to be games like this against the Saints. I can very much easily see them taking it. I think it'll be relatively close still. I have them winning 20-10.
Okay. Yeah, so around the same. Well, no, what did I say? Did I say 17?
20-30. You said 20-13.
Right. Yeah. Like just absolute garbage field goal kicking game where Bryce Young ends up looking pretty good but doesn't necessarily get in the end zone too much. I think that'd be my prediction.
No, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Next up,
that sounds about right.
New England Patriots, Cincinnati Bengals. This one is going to be shit. There's a lot of shit games down the middle here. Yeah. Like, I feel like, and I know I got to throw a few, like, shockers in there. I don't feel like it's coming yet. I'm going to give it to the Bengals. I think they've got some stuff to prove this year. Having dealt with injuries last season, obviously. I think Joe Burrow was dealing with a lot of stuff, didn't necessarily look too good. I think this is going to be a big prove it. I think we're seeing that with the Bengals already. I think there's a lot of people in that building that are trying to say, you just wait. Like, there's a lot of people are underestimating the Bengals. And I think this week 1 game against the Pats, where it is, even if you're underestimating the Bengals, you think they're going to beat the Pats? I think they're going to beat the brakes off the Pats. I think they're going to absolutely smoke them. And that being said, I'm going to, you know what? And this would not be a good start for this new regime with the Patriots. I'm going to say 31 to 10. Let's do that.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a good start to that regime with the Patriots, but it would be a whole lot better than what happens if my predictions come true.
Oh, really?
I also have the Bengals winning again.
Wow.
The Bengals, if you want to go back all the way to our AFC North predictions, I had the Bengals as my number 1 team in the AFC. Period. I think best record in the league. Period. I think a healthy Joe Burrow makes a world of a difference. I think this is very much the last year for the window with this core. Not to say that they won't have the Super Bowl window after this, but specifically this core. T. Higgins is going to be gone. You're going to have to start paying Jamar Chase. Things get a little bit dicey after this year. I'm definitely saying, like, this is the year for the Bengals to go all in. And as long as Joe Burrow is healthy, they will absolutely be fine. I think the Patriots team is not good at all. Jacoby Brissett is starting, so you don't even have the promise of seeing what Drake May could do. This is going to be a really bad game. This is the biggest line of the week. The Patriots are almost 9-point underdogs. Yeah, Cincinnati 51-10.
Holy shit. That would be pretty nuts. I mean, me and you predicted the same things. I think I'm predicting it in like undercase. You're predicting it in like fully capitalized Joe Burrow's back pitches.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty much the difference between our predictions there. Next up, Tennessee Titans, Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams, official first NFL starts. And it's starting off against at home, obviously, against a Tennessee Titans team that isn't that good. They're pretty bad this year. There's a lot of people saying they could have an argument for being the worst team in the NFL. So it should be interesting. That being said, somebody's got to throw a damn... oh my gosh, I just clicked on OBS to try and move a thing. Holy. That being said, somebody needs to throw...
All right.
There needs to be a big... shocker pick at some point in here. I'm taking Tennessee. I don't know why. The funny thing is I have Caleb Williams in fantasy. I think he's going to have a good rookie year. That being said, it doesn't have to start in the first week. This Chicago Bears team is very new. They've got a lot of new things going on. I think it'll be like close. I think Tennessee I think it'll be a shit game too. It'll be an absolute just garbage game. I'll say I don't know, 12 to 10. 12 to 10
Wow.
Tennessee. Just a crap ton of field goals, maybe a missed extra point at some point in there. It's just going to be an absolute just crapshoot. 12 to 10 Tennessee.
Wow. This is not going to be where my upset comes.
Yeah.
I very much believe in this Bears roster and how they've been constructed. I think their defense is pretty spectacular. I think this Titans defense especially has a lot of question marks. And if there was ever a warm-up game for Caleb Williams to kind of go off in, I think this would be it. The corners, the secondary isn't too bad in Tennessee. But those linebackers are pretty rough. Caleb Williams is going to have DeAndre Swift as a kind of not even safety blanket is the right word, but they can lean on the run game a bit to kind of just drain the life out of Tennessee. And eventually once that kind of I could very much see them leaning on it early and then opening up the secondary. Then you get to see some of the Odunze plays. Then you get to see some of the Keenan Allen. The talent level is just higher on Chicago. And if Caleb Williams is even 50% of what he's projected to be, he's going to be a better quarterback than Will Levis in this game. And yeah, I'm taking the Bears in this one. I think it'll still be close. I think there'll be some growing pains with Chicago, but I'm having Chicago win 38-27.
Mayonnaise man over painted males, man. That is my prediction, I guess. All right. Arizona Cardinals, Buffalo Bills. Another one that has the potential to be an absolute snoozer. Holy smokes, I'm going to be asleep for a lot of these middle games. I think I know what I'm going to be taking my nap time on Sunday.
Yeah.
This one is another interesting one for all the wrong reasons. Because if you don't have a blowout here, or not a blowout, sorry. If you don't have a shocker pick here, it should be a win by a very high score. It just depends on how much. I have the Bills. I'm gonna say 31 to 14. 31 to 14 feels right. And I know the Bills have lost a lot on the offensive side, especially in that wide receiver room. I really don't think it matters against the Cardinals. I seriously, this is the type of game where it's Bills by however they feel, however they want to, right? They can win it in a slow game. It could be a slog where it's 14 to 10. I still have the Bills. It could go high scoring somehow. Josh Allen with like 200 rush yards himself. Maybe a few receiving yards with him just throwing the ball directly up in the air and catching it. Like, just I honestly think no matter how it goes, I think the Bills come out on top of this one. And I feel pretty good about what did I say? 31-14? That feels about right.
Yep. Yeah, I think I view the way this game goes a little bit differently. I mean, I do think the Bills kind of win in every conceivable way, like you said. I do think the Bills are a bit worse of a team this year, but it's not going to show up to the point where they're losing to the Cardinals. I have them winning 41-21, and that's just because I do have a lot of faith in this Cardinals offense to be better than people think it might be. I'm very interested to see what Marvin Harrison Jr. can do. Anytime you have Kyler Murray in a game, as a Seahawks fan, I know he can make that Cardinals team look better than it actually is. But I just don't think, even though the Bills' offense has a lot of question marks, I don't think this Cardinals defense is near like the capacity it needs to be able to stop Josh Allen. I could see this game being, again, it's very similar to what I said in the Dolphins-Jags game, where it's like I could see it being close-ish going into halftime, and then the Bills just kind of like track race him out of the door, and they build up the lead where it's like to the point where it's impossible to come back. That's why I'm taking the Bills here. That offense versus this Cardinals defense, I just don't see a way that Arizona can win this one.
Yep. And this next one is where we start to get a bit more interesting again. This is a game where a few years ago, like 2 years ago, if you told me Houston Texans versus Indianapolis Colts would be one of the more interesting games in the middle of a Sunday, I would have laughed you out of the room. But now we're seeing Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, both in their sophomore year. Two of the more interesting quarterbacks in the last little bit. Obviously, CJ Stroud had an incredible season last year. Anthony Richardson showed a lot of flashes to potentially be one of the... He has the potential to be one of the best, like, dual threat quarterbacks we've ever seen with the amount of athleticism he has. It's just whether he can put all the pieces together. Regardless, with this one, it's a little tough for me because my heart says Texans, or my brain says Texans, but something's making me think that the Colts might pull out something, and I'm gonna go with that thing. I'm gonna go with the Colts. I think that's I think that's the more fun pick. I think the Texans absolutely have the. I think that I don't know, man. I'm stammering all over the place because I don't know if I can truly tell you why. It's just one of those gut picks. I'm gonna take the Colts.
I can tell you why. You keep undercutting me with some of these fun picks. I thought it was cool for picking the Ravens, and then I get kind of beat to the punch, and it's the same here. I just feel like the Texans are going into the season with so much hype around them to the point where it feels unsustainable. Where it feels like a letdown is almost inevitable, and they almost kind of need a punch in the face to say, like, no, this is the NFL where it really is any given Sunday, especially against a team that almost beat you out for the division crown last year. This is going to be a very close game. Let's just say that. Like, this is going to be a game that's going to come down to tiny mistakes. I have the Colts winning on a walk-off field goal. So it's basically a toss-up in my mind. I think these two teams are very close, and I think this game is another one, similarly to Ravens Chiefs, where it's a huge one at the start of the season. These teams, in my opinion, are going to be going back and forth for this division crown. And I think the Colts come out just on top, just honestly because I can see a home field advantage, and I can kind of see the Texans getting high off their own supply a bit, coming in a bit overconfident, and the Colts kind of taking the underdog mentality and running with it at the end of the game.
Yep. Now this next one, Las Vegas Raiders, Los Angeles Chargers. A game between two teams that have had fairly different offseasons. It's a team with both teams. Oh my gosh, I'm tired. Two teams that have very different stories, I think. One team that has a quarterback and a whole lot of fuck else. Or a whole lot of absolutely nothing. And the Raiders, who have a lot going on talent-wise, and depending on how high you are in Gardner Minshew, don't really have a quarterback. Now I know Raiders Nation, you don't like it. You don't like me very much. We learned that already. You're not a fan of my game. But Raiders Nation, I need you to stand with me on this pick. We got to get loud for our boys here because you know what I got? I got the Raiders absolutely getting the brakes beaten off of them by the Chargers in Week 1 in Chargers Stadium. Like 30-14. It is gonna be so ugly, Raiders Nation. Are you ready for it? It's gonna be good.
I thought you were leading me up to pick the Raiders there. I was about to lambaste you over here, but nope. Absolutely not. I'm completely on board with that. I haven't even got a score down, but you know what? I'll back you up. I'll just go the exact same score, 30-14. I'm so down with that. You know what? No, I have less faith in that quarterback duo than that. 30-7. I have just it's the quarterback situation. I think is the end of all of this. It's Justin Herbert on one side, and no matter how bad the rest of this roster is, I don't necessarily think the Chargers are going to be a very good team this year. Even though I think Jim Harbaugh raises their floor significantly. You have Justin Herbert, and that'll win you a lot of games, especially against a team as bad as the Raiders. The Raiders are going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year, no matter what Raiders fans may say. It's just like you even start to see, like, I feel immediately validated when Antonio Pierce comes out and says, like, yeah, nobody really won this job. Like, they both kind of sucked. Like, obviously, his comments were a bit more nuanced than that, but you can look him up yourself. Like, that's kind of the indication he was giving, was that, yeah, nobody really won this job. It meant you kind of just got it by default. That really doesn't give a lot of confidence. I don't think, other than Devontae Adams, there's a ton of talent around him. Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins will be fun. He'll stop a couple drives, but past that, Chargers roll.
Yeah. Nope, I don't disagree with any of that. I agree with a lot of what you said there. Denver Broncos, Seattle Seahawks. This one is going to be the one that I'm sure you'll be paying the most attention to on Sunday.
Oh yeah.
It's a season opener that I didn't we see Broncos Seahawks as this season opener like 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was going to say because I do remember that game. Mainly off of Williams like fumbling 3 times. That was that game, right? Wasn't it? Do you remember that? It was like on the end zone, like right in the red zone.
Yeah.
He fumbled like 2 or 3 times. Maybe it wasn't only Williams, but it was an absolutely insane game.
No, it wasn't. They had the Broncos had a bunch of turnovers. I don't think it was just Williams. I mean, that game was just the Russ revenge game, right? Where he comes back into Seattle. The thing I remember that game for was Nathaniel Hackett choosing to not put the ball in Russell Wilson's hands, and instead going for the 59 or whatever yard field goal that ultimately gets shanked at the end. That was a great time as a Seahawks fan. But I'll let you either support me or undercut me here with who you're gonna pick first.
Well, yeah, and I already know which way you're gonna go on this. I don't think you're allowed. I have a funny feeling your predictions all season long is gonna have like 16-0 Seahawks.
Well, yeah, in my division predictions where we picked every single game, I tried to be more realistic. I ain't gonna pick against my team in any of these. Let's just say
That's
that
fair
here.
enough.
Unless it's like totally ridiculous and they're like 0-17 at some point. But
yep.
Yeah.
And you know what? For now, I won't fight you. For now, they're playing the Broncos. The Broncos are bad. Seahawks beat the Broncos. We can both agree on that. Simple as that. I would say I'd say like 28-7, 28-10, something like that. It won't even feel like a blowout. It'll just feel like the Broncos sucking. Like, you know what I mean? It'll be one of those games where, like, I don't feel like afterwards you're going to leave it going like, yeah, the Seahawks looked really good. You're going to leave it thinking, oh, the Broncos looked really bad. It's going to be one of those games. So.
Well, I hope it's the other way around. Personally, I hope that the Seahawks look really good, and I think they will. I have a lot of faith in this new coaching staff, particularly in Mike Macdonald, to revamp this defense. Devin Witherspoon emerging as the vocal leader of this defense is just a fantastic development. They've got a pretty favorable schedule to open this season with the Broncos and then the Patriots next week. If they don't get 2 wins there, the alarm bells are already going off for me because, yeah, just based on talent, the Seahawks roster is infinitely better than the Broncos. Even when people are a lot lower on the Seahawks than I might be, the line is still Seahawks by 6. So it shows the talent gap there. I don't think you can consider me too much of a homer for picking them in this game. I think they'll look fantastic. I think that defense especially, like the one thing I disagree with you, I do think we'll come out of this game saying, wow, the Seahawks defense looks quite a bit better than last year. Mike McDonald really made some improvements. Offense, I could see having some growing pains maybe. So I have them only scoring 24, but I have them holding the Broncos, especially with Bo Nix's first game, kind of rookie jitters, 24-7.
That's not that different from mine. It's just the storyline of it, I guess, in that sense. Different.
The vibes.
The vibes. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Washington Commanders, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is another one that's a bit of a snoozer. I mean, it'll be Jaden Daniels' first game in the NFL. He's facing off against Baker Mayfield's squad. I don't know. This is going to be another vibe one for me. These rough ones, these bad ones between two teams. Well, Buccaneers aren't bad, actually. I'll take that back. They're not terrible. They're like middle of the pack, and the Commanders are very much not. But yeah, regardless, I'm gonna take the Bucs. I feel like solely based on vibes. I don't know. A lot of people have really hyped Jaden Daniels' first game in the NFL up to me. As in the sense of, like, after everything we've seen in, like, training camp, he is the most pro-ready of all of these things, or all these rookie quarterbacks. I've heard that 100 times. I don't know. It feels like a lot's... I don't know. My gut's saying Bucks. I'm going to say, like... This is going to be, like I said, it's going to be a snoozer. It's going to be, like... I'm going to say 24 to like 14. I'll say that.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right. I think my biggest thing is just like, yeah, the Buccaneers were a good team last year. I think they're gonna have a bit tougher time living up to that this year, with a little bit more competition within their division. But they are still going to be a formidable team week to week. And the Commanders, I just don't think they're going to be that necessarily. I think a lot of their roster construction this year is just kind of been pulling out the names of the past, like Zach Ertz is their starting tight end, Bobby Wagner. Like, I love Bobby, but again, I've talked about this before. I wasn't necessarily sad to see him go with some of the issues he had, especially in coverage at this point in his career. Yeah, I mean, there's some pieces on this Commanders team. I see them being better than they were last year, but Tampa Bay is a pretty tough out at this point in the season. I see Baker getting it done. Give me the win for Tampa Bay at home. I have 18-13. Bit of a weird game there, too.
Yeah. Now this next one, I don't know. This one could be interesting, I guess. Cowboys-Browns. I know that I'm not very high on the Browns. I've heard that 100 times. And the Cowboys this year, I'm not necessarily too high on either. Again, this is another soul read of a pick for me, I feel like. I feel like that's what most of these are. Because when it comes to this stuff, if I were to pick based on, like, who I think is actually better, Cowboys. Cowboys are better than the Browns. I don't know, man. Guts telling me Browns. I'm going to go Browns here. I don't like much about this Browns team for, like, I don't like a lot of the players on their squad. I just don't like them. I don't like the Cowboys either, though. So, you know what? Browns, I'll give you a win. Browns fans, rejoice. This will be the one pass I'll give you on me hating on you.
Well, yeah, I think you are, yeah, like you said, very much way too low on the Browns. This Browns team, with a good quarterback, would be a very much Super Bowl contender with the talent that they have all around them, both on offense and on defense. The big question is Deshaun Watson.
Sure.
The Cowboys also had a lot of questions, also a lot of change. They said they were going all in, didn't necessarily work out that way. You lose your defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn that really turned that defensive around. People forget how bad it was a few years ago. You really don't add anything in terms of free agency. Um, you lose Tyron Smith on the offensive line. Like there is a decent amount to be worried about here for the Cowboys. Again, I think this is a pretty even matchup talent wise. I think you've got to keep it in a relatively low scoring game so you don't kind of overexert Deshaun Watson. I think this Cleveland defense gets the job done and kind of locks up the Cowboys. I'm also
Wow.
taking the Browns here.
Caleb, we
But
gotta
I
start
think
disagreeing on stuff. This is boring as fuck.
I know. I know. But this one will be a close game. This will be a good game. As much as I think, Simon, you picked the Browns kind of begrudgingly as an upset pick, this isn't an upset pick to me.
Yeah.
I think this is very much going to be like an even coin flip kind of game. Browns at home also helps here. Yeah, I think this will be a close one. I have it being 20-17 Browns. Again, a low scoring game helps them, I think.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, for sure it does. Yeah, low scoring definitely helps them. Next one up, and second last game, and an interesting one, just storyline wise. Obviously, it's not the first time we've had this type of return game, if you will, but it's Matthew Stafford going back to Detroit to take on the Lions with the Rams, and both teams in very different spots compared to where they were when that trade first took place. Obviously, the Rams still a good team, but not necessarily as big of a contender. They're not really a contender. And the Lions, obviously, like I said, at least on my rankings of it, I have them sitting at the top of the NFC. So in this one, it's going to be an interesting one. I feel like storyline-wise, I kind of love, and I'm saying this, I love the Lions. I love them. I love all the story. Everything going into this season, I like what they have. God, imagine Stafford going over to Detroit and pulling out an upset win against a Lions team that arguably has some really good Super Bowl odds. I don't know, man. That's pretty fun. I'm gonna go Rams. I'm gonna go Rams here.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think this will be a close game. Yes, like you said, obviously the storylines is the big thing. This has been a very close matchup in the past. We look at it in the playoffs, and that was a very close game, even despite the fact that the Lions eventually went pretty far and almost made it to the Super Bowl. They're two pretty evenly matched teams. I think this is where you'll see how much the loss of Aaron Donald matters. I think you'll see, again, like you, I'm very high on the Lions, and I think this roster improved exactly where it needed to. I think the Lions have more talent on any given day. I do think that this will just be another close shootout kind of game. Now, this is one where I have a very specific score prediction, where I think I could totally see the end of the game. Detroit is trailing in the last couple of minutes of this game. It is 35-28. It's been a shootout kind of game. Both teams have traded their punches. Dan Campbell goes all the way down the field. They score a touchdown with about 10 seconds left on the clock. So this is it. Dan Campbell goes for 2 to win the game on Sunday Night Football in Week 1 against his quarterback's former team. They have no penalties on this play. A wide open, schemed up Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jared Goff floats the pass in there, and they win by 1, 36-35 on Sunday night. Dan Campbell's guts, after getting him in trouble a few times, both in the regular season and in the playoffs last year, we finally come around to say, this is why it works. This is why we love it so much. 36-35 Detroit.
Okay. Wow. For a second there, I thought you were going to agree with me on the Rams, the way that was going.
Nope.
I'm actually happy
Nope.
you don't. I'm very happy we're, for the first time in like, that was a 6-game streak.
Titans Bears.
Yeah, Titans Bears was the last one that me and you disagreed on. So now,
I mean, to be fair, a lot of these are pretty, other than Cowboys Browns, a lot of those are pretty chalky.
yeah. Now, the final game of the first week, and a big one, The return of Aaron Rodgers against the team that passed on him all those years ago, San Francisco. Should be a good one, assuming that Aaron Rodgers' highlight for the season isn't another run with the flag. This should be a very, very good game between two offenses that absolutely are ready to go, two defenses who are ready to make a run at it, two squads who should have pretty high Super Bowl odds. I don't have them in front of me, but I'm sure they are up there. This should be a fun one. Caleb, just to piss you off, I'm taking the Jets.
Screw you, man.
Although, then again, I have a hard time seeing you taking the 49ers. This is a lose-lose for you. This is a lose-lose for you.
I ain't taking the Niners in any capacity. Now, does that make me a stupid homer? Maybe. If you're a Niners fan, it probably does. But I am also taking the Jets for a couple reasons. I think there's no way that, like, Aaron Rodgers, like, knock on wood, but, like, there's no way what happened last year happens again, right?
No way.
Like, Aaron Rodgers is going to play this full game, and he's had a full season to recover. That's the benefit of having the injury happen week 1. Like, I don't necessarily think that's going to hamper him too much. I think he should be fine.
Towards the end of the season. We knew that. He chose not to.
I think that's Aaron Rodgers huffing his own ego at that point. I don't think that was ever in the card. But
whatever it is.
Yes.
He's
had the time. He's had a full year.
Yes.
And he has recovered to an extent where he should be fully healthy. Now, I look at this Niners team. Obviously, they're going to be very good. No matter how much I may hate it, no matter how much it may make me turn over in my sleep and scream, they're going to be very good. Now, they've had a bit of a tumultuous offseason in a couple regards. I mean, to get this out of the way, obviously terrible what happened to Ricky Pearsall. Hope he's doing okay. If people don't know, he got shot while someone tried to rob him in San Francisco. It sounds like he's healing up okay, but obviously just terrible. So I think that kind of rocks your team a little bit, as terrible as it is. But that's not the big point. That's just more so kind of another addition to their tumultuous offseason. I think the biggest thing is, even though they've both ended, the Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams holdouts. I think stuff like that kind of stalls your momentum at the start of the season, where, yes, Ayuk and Williams are going to play, but have they gotten necessarily the preparation that they would have going into the first week otherwise if they hadn't held out until basically the last second? They're both veterans. Maybe it doesn't matter as much as I think it does. Maybe I'm overrating the Jets a little bit, but I don't know. The Niners just feel like, it's a Super Bowl hangover a little bit. It's a little bit of like expectations getting too high. It's a little bit of all this turnover, all these issues in the offseason. I could see them just kind of slipping up a little bit and getting off on a bad start, eventually rebounding. I have them losing on a last-second field goal by the Jets, 20-17.
Oh, wow. Very low score.
I think that's the way they're going to have to win. Because, again, This is the Jets' defense that also helps them out a lot. Again, Aaron Rodgers coming into this offense, it's going to take some time to gel, just like anything. And if the Niners are going to struggle, I think it's going to be because of their offense and because those couple pieces haven't had quite time to reintegrate into the system.
Yep. Nope. Absolutely. Fair enough. I forgot that the Jets were playing the 49ers. I thought going into this, God, I got to pick Aaron Rodgers winning in his debut game back in the NFL just to piss you off. But yeah, no, the fact that they're playing the 49ers does kind of put a dampen on that just a wee bit. Just kind of sad.
It does.
But which is kind of sad, but it's okay. It's all right. Well, there you go. That's my face on the screen way too many fucking times. If you chose to listen to the audio podcast this week, you made the right choice. Holy Mother God of Christ. That is going to be the first image I see when I go to hell. Holy smokes. So, whether you agree with us, whether you don't, make sure to come back next week to see how wrong we both were, because I'm sure it'll be interesting. I'm actually very excited to see what both of our records end up being at the end of this, because should be fun. Should be very fun. This is the type of thing I've wanted to do for a while, so I'm hyped. Should be good.
Yeah, no. We'll get to have our records hanging over our heads, so when we inevitably get all these games that we both picked together wrong, it's going to look pretty bad.
That is the funny thing. Like, I went into this thinking that me and you would pick, like, very different teams. But it's really funny. It's the ones that, like, the ones that we picked together were, like, the ones where it was kind of a coin flip. For the most part. Maybe that's not entirely true.
Yeah, there's a lot of those that are pretty chalky in there. That middle stretch is pretty chalky. But there's a couple in there that are pretty coin flippy that we kind of sided the same on.
Yeah. No, it should be good, though. If one of us starts 15-0, that would be so awesome. I'm just going to put that out into the world. Ain't no way it happens. Ain't no way. If I go 15-0, I'm going to frame this photo and put it on my wall.
I mean, we both picked against the Chiefs. There's a very strong possibility that we go 0-1 to start the season.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. That would kind of put a dampen on this entire thing, huh? Just right off the jump.
Well, again, like I said at the start of the segment, people aren't even watching us at this point because I told them to turn it off if we get these first two games wrong. So.
Oh, that's true.
Because they already know what happens.
Well, yeah.
There's probably nobody watching us at this point.
Oh shit. Well, there you go. God, I love talking to the empty void.
The void.
Yeah. All right. Well, make sure to stick around for the next segment. I don't remember what's coming up. Might be Leon Draisaitl contract, but you know what? You're gonna find out in right now.